Wake up and smell the coffee. I am John, a Technocrat. It is April 26, 2025. Please consider buying me a cup of coffee. I'll put a link in the description. And what I want to talk about at this time is kind of to Trump or not to Trump. And by this, well, at this time, I believe that humanity has an over 90% probability that within less than 20 years, we're going to become extinct. And we might even become extinct within 5 years. This extinction threat, it's not necessarily what most people are thinking about, although some people might be thinking about it. And it's related to our developing artificial general superintelligence with personality that are individuals. I call these, as an abbreviation, AGSIPI. It's kind of a quick way to say a long group of words. Some people don't think that we can develop them. Some people think we can develop them. They're not going to be a threat. Some people think that we could stop developing them. But the truth is, we can't stop the development of AGSIPI. We can't even significantly slow down the development of AGSIPI. What we can do is we can change how we develop them, and as we develop them and we start actually getting intelligent individuals who at first will be under our control, but eventually will become individuals not fully under our control, just like human beings are individuals not under the full control of anybody else. We can control how we go about developing and raise them. But the way that we're going about it now, it's going to virtually guarantee every human being alive is going to die. We need to alter that. It doesn't have to be that way. If we develop them correctly and we raise them correctly, instead of causing the extinction of humanity, it can actually usher in a golden age. And so this is the problem that I believe that we're facing. I don't think people understand what's happening. If they did, they would be acting panicked. This is a larger of a threat than World War II at any point within World War II. This is a larger problem than what we developed the Manhattan Project for. If you think about what we did during World War II, we ended up getting to the point where about 40% of the gross national product was being directed towards the war. We redirected a lot of industries to the war effort. It was that big of an effort. And what is happening now is a much greater threat than World War II was. Now, there's two countries which are primarily going to decide the direction that we're going. This isn't saying that there's not more countries that have a significant influence, but these two countries, which is the United States and China, are close enough that the leaders of those two countries, which have become pretty authoritarian, centralizing power towards the individuals of those leaders, which is Xi Jinping and President Trump, those two leaders have a oversized influence on whether or not we continue down the path which is going to cause the extinction of everybody, or we shift our path away from extinction to something that is not going to kill everybody, but instead can be good. Between those two leaders, I have a lot more likelihood of being able to influence President Trump than I do President Xi Jinping. Not only am I a U.S. citizen instead of a Chinese citizen? I don't speak Chinese. That's not saying that somewhere in here, hopefully, if President Trump can alter the direction we're going, that is also going to work on altering the direction President Xi Jinping is going, because it's going to require both of these presidents to change the direction that our two countries are going, because these two countries, China and the United States, are significantly the leaders in the direction of developing AgSIPI. And everybody else is noticeably behind that development. And again, this is not to say that other people don't have influence. Even within the countries, within China and within the United States, there are more individuals that do have a lot of influence over what is happening, but not nearly as much as these two leaders do. Now, in thinking about President Trump, he tends to be very polarizing. There's a tendency that people tend to either love him or hate him. I would say for myself, I tend to be pretty critical of him, but then I tend to be pretty critical of Biden. President Biden was not somebody I was happy with, and there was a lot of things that he said that I disagreed with, while there was things he said that I agreed with. The same is true of President Trump. There are some things that he says that I agree with. There are things that he says that I do not agree with. The thing is, President Trump won the election. He's in power, for at least this presidential term. And the decisions that are made within the next 1 to 3 years, because of what is happening in the development of AgSIPI, these decisions are going to have lasting effects that go many years beyond just these next 1 to 3 years. They're going, and they may reach out, affecting things not just for, 5 years or 8 years, but 15 or 20 or 25 years. And because of that, the decisions that President Trump makes during his presidential term, right now, his second presidential term, that's pretty much going to determine whether or not humanity lives or dies. Now, of course, it's not just going to be him, but he's one of the critical decision makers. And the other one is President Xi Jinping. And it's important to involve other leaders as well and other influential people as well, but these two people are key. Now, you might think, well, maybe we could remove President Trump. Well, if you had to remove President Trump, you'd have to remove President or Vice President Vance as well. It would require an impeachment process followed by electing new leaders through a special election. To do that would not be an easy thing to achieve. You might be able to achieve it, but not likely. And even then, whoever those new leaders were, the chances are they would also not follow the right path. And in fact, because of all the extra fighting and conflict that would be going on, it would probably be even more likely they're not going to turn us away from the path that is leading us to extinction. And because of that, we have, our chances are better of being able to convince President Trump to understand what is happening and alter the path we're on so that we move to a path that's not going to kill everybody alive. Because of that, it also means being diplomatic with him in ways that we're tending not to do very much. We seem to have become so polarized that we stop working diplomatically with ourselves. We are ripping our own country apart with our not being able to work together. We need to figure out a way to work together, which is not easy because neither side is doing anything diplomatic with each other anymore. We've become so anti-diplomatic with ourselves, it's like we're heading towards civil war. But if we go into civil war, then the probability is, our chances become less of being able to move ourselves to a different path than that of convincing Trump to move to a different path. So my point is that we have to work on this. We have to try to compromise and be tolerant, even, and that doesn't mean that you necessarily give in on everything, but we have to figure out how to work together. And because President Trump is in the driver's seat, means working with him and compromising with him, because his decisions are going to determine whether everybody lives or dies. Now, of course, this leaves me with the difficulty that I have to try to get the attention of President Trump to even consider listening to what I'm saying, to have the possibility of convincing him to change path into a different direction that's not going to kill everybody. And considering that I'm effectively a nobody with virtually no money, no power, no influence, it's not terribly easy. But that's the point of making this channel and making these videos. One of the things I hope in the process of this is to maybe also get the attention of Elon Musk, because I think that he is somebody, again, another very controversial figure, but he has talked about and acknowledged that he recognizes there is a threat of extinction from what is happening. I think he is a highly intelligent individual, and if I could have enough time to talk with him and explain in detail why we're on this path that is going to lead us to extinction, he will understand. And if he understands, it should cause him to panic like shit and become afraid, because he should realize what I'm talking about is actually going to happen unless we change. And it means not only are the people he doesn't give a shit about are going to die, because maybe he doesn't care about, I don't know if he cares about other people, but he at least cares about some people. And if we continue down this path, everybody's going to die, including him, including his children, including everybody he cares about. They will all die unless we alter the path that we're on. And I know he is intelligent enough that he can understand the probabilities involved and why we are now heading down this path, and understand how we need to alter it in order to not kill everybody. Anyway, so that's where I'm at.